So I guess the good place to start then would probably be the beginning, right? Um, Legend of Korra I thought was pretty sweet. It has a lot of cool elements that I feel from the old one, like the humor. I could definitely tell it's still there. Like as soon as Korra busted through the wall and said, "I'm the Avatar, deal with it," and she's just like blasting stuff and destroying things. Like immediately my mind went to Toph, like the same kind of personality right there, just in your face. You know, I'm gonna do this, and I just kind of felt that same feel. How was your guys' impressions from the start?
Well, for me, I would say for they mentioned in the first series how you identified the four toys. Out of all these toys, you came across four toys and you picked them,
Hmm.
and that determined who the Avatar was. They don't even get their toys out. She comes busting through the wall. She's wielding fire, bending the earth, throwing water around.
Yeah.
And since I'm under the impression everyone before that picked up the toys, don't ask me how the first one did it, picked up the toys, she must be pretty powerful to be wielding three of the four elements. So
Yeah, and she
second nature already. Not master, but being able to do it at will is impressive.
yeah, and they kind of gave that feel. I felt at the beginning that she mastered the first three elements super quick, and she's like mastered the physical side of being an avatar. What were your impressions, Tino?
I liked it. I did like the fact that they actually showed more of the Avatar's power, like just right off the bat with the first episode.
Yeah,
Like just it shows a lot more what that without being in the Avatar state, what an Avatar can actually do. Like they did show within the first season because
right.
Avatar Yang is still trying to learn his things. Now she's just a master at them all already. So
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that about it.
honestly, she came off to me as being stronger than Aang was initially.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure Avatars kind of all peak around the same range, but right off the bat, like she struck me as someone who just seemed more naturally inclined, and maybe that's just because she had the time to take all the proper training, where he was frozen and then rushed through the training of three new bendings, whereas she kind of had a long time trained since she was like three, kind of doing crazy stuff.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. And then she was just beating like 2v1 and just very easily dismantling people. Which those firefights they showed, that reminded me a lot of when JUCO and stuff, when they showed those traditional fire bending sparring matches. That really reminded me of that when that sparring match was going and all the elders and stuff were watching.
Well, I also think from a production point of view, we're not gonna. If I was gonna make a fourth book, more or less,
Hmm.
I wouldn't waste my time doing water and fire and earth because we've seen those.
Right.
The one that we never saw in the original series is air, because Aang, just like Korra's a master of three out of four, he was a
Right.
master of one out of the four, and got 3 seasons of exploring
That's true.
the other three.
That's a really good point. Like artistically, like from a writer's perspective, it does make sense to leave out the air, and also from a storyline perspective, all the air tribe was pretty much dead except for Aang, so it would be hard to find a teacher right off the bat. So it kind of makes sense. And we're only talking of what, maybe 50, 60 years have passed from the first season, our first show.
It all
Yeah.
depends on how old Katara is.
She's pretty old.
Yeah, so maybe more. Well, maybe more than 50 or 60.
Yeah, but around there. Uh, I mean, since this is the first episode, I think it's only natural to talk about all the differences that kind of struck us as we're watching this one. But one that kind of came to me was in the other one. Since we were need to learn three new bendings, and all the benders had their own nation, we were going to be doing a lot of traveling and get a lot of diverse people in the main group that kind of formed what I'll call Team Avatar, you know. But in this one, with with like her only need to learn one new bending, and they kind of have this city set up that seems to be where the central conflict is happening. You know, like all the non-benders are there, benders are there from all different parts of the world, from the Fire Nation, from the Earth Nation. They all seem to be like in one spot, and it really feels in this one we're going to spend a lot of time there. Did anyone else get that same vibe?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys like
And
that or what? Or go ahead.
well, they came out with a comic. How many months ago now? A few months, maybe 2. Called Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Promise Book 1.
Hmm.
And the conflict in that is it's been a year since the defeat of the Phoenix King, and their biggest conflict is getting the Fire Nation colonies out of the Earth Kingdom. And the oldest one, those people refuse to leave because to them they've lived there all their lives.
Right.
So, and they mentioned, I'm pretty sure briefly, how this city, Republic City, great name,
Right.
was that colony. So it kind of spoils how the conflict in the comic's gonna end. But you got a lot of interesting things.
Yeah.
Modern city, every kind of bender's there. You even got an airbending temple out in the bay, like Alcatraz or something.
Right. Right. So do you guys think that Avatar Aang like accomplished his goal by the end of the book, or do you think? I mean, because apparently he would probably have a few years to kind of do what he wanted. He beated the Phoenix Lord, I guess he called himself at that point, fairly early in his life, and then lived for a while. I mean, do you feel he accomplished what he wanted to? Did he like? How did he leave the world? I guess for Korra.
If his goal was to restore balance, yeah, he came fairly close to achieving it. Amongst the bending,
Right.
this story looks like we're gonna say, yeah, he achieved that, but there's this other goal that they never talked about in the first series.
What was your impressions? Do you feel like he achieved his goals, or like is the world still in disarray, or what?
Yeah, as far as the bending goes, yeah, he did restore that balance, but also now with the new series, they actually, because when Avatar Aang was alive, there was more benders than there were non-benders, or at least their communities were more, secluded to bending and then non-bending. But now, I guess what he's done is pretty much, mix them all together. So
Yeah.
that's the only real conflict now that he probably didn't finish, that he
Right.
was working on to achieve next was, completing that balance and restoring, getting that peace, strongly held
Yeah.
between them. And then that's probably, now where Korra is.
Yep, that's
challenged
exactly
with
my
that.
feelings. There's no more conquerors anymore. Right now, it's more social and political strife,
Yeah,
which was hinted at actually in the first series when they walked around like, oh, this is the poor people area. You know, they had Prince Juko and his uncle walking through the town, and they showed how Ba Sing Se was all sectored off between the wealthy and the poor. And there was a little of that social element, but I think now it's coming more to the forefront, and it doesn't seem to be the poor versus rich angle. It seems to be a bending and non-bending angle that they're going for, which kind of seems natural, that you would kind of be an elitist if you were a bender and kind of place yourself above people. I mean, imagine if, like, us had magical powers, right? And there's just a bunch of people that don't. Like, we would probably feel somewhat arrogant, like...
Or a better example, Homo Superior, mutants from X-Men.
exactly.
Right, yeah. X-Men does exactly kind of what this one's almost hinting at. So we'll see. I wonder how much of a focus that's going to be. Um, okay. I'm thinking of a lot of cool stuff from episode 2 because all that's so much more fresher in my mind. But on episode 1, I guess Korra had the hardest time with airbending, it seems. So, I don't know, like... She seemed to kind of master it, though, pretty quick, also. Like, is this, like, almost getting resolved by episode 2?
Well, I wouldn't say she mastered it, but she's just learning how to use it. Because if you pay attention to how each bending, the source of where they came from, her personality pretty much just surrounds all three: fire, water, and earth. But
Right.
that calm, staying, flowing with the motions of the wind. Her personality really does not reflect that at all. And
Yep.
now it kind of she's starting to realize, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to allow myself to just not be so aggressive, but just to let it flow.
Right. Right. And that definitely seemed to be. I like how they keep those themes from the original series back into the new series because they talked about that when Toph was trying to train Aang. She's all about you have to be stubborn, you have to be hard, you have to be in your face like a rock, and that's who Toph was. She was just very stubborn, very very strong opinions, very blunt. Um, you can just imagine her like slamming the door in Katara's face when Katara wanted to confront her on stuff. That's just how she was, very aggressive. And
Yep.
yeah, and Aang, if you look at his personality, being raised in the Air Tribe, was very reflective, very like, is this the right thing to do? Should we be doing this? And he was all about that whole spiritual. I have to meditate on this, and like everyone's just like, what are we meditating for? We're just sitting here. But like that was Aang's thing, and so um, Korra has that same problem now. She is very much more like Toph character-wise, and she can't relate to thinking things through, being patient, and how that's very valuable as a way of combat and expressing yourself, and I guess bending. So, yeah,
And
go ahead.
she comes from the water tribe, and even Katara was stubborn in that sense.
Yeah, it's almost hard to identify each of the elements. I mean, you could say rock, it's like it's there, it's going to be, sturdy. And you would say, I guess wind, you could give that whole like flow thing, but you'd almost want to give that to water too. So I don't know.
But not as fluid.
Yeah.
Right. Air is more fluid than the liquid. Yeah. But and then fire, you can kind of just see that aggression, even though, and when we get to that episode in the other series, it wasn't just supposed to be about aggression for fire as a way to do it. That was just,
It evolved that way.
yeah, that's what they turned it into. So yeah, so where do we go from there? So I know she like failed miserably at trying to like go through those things you had to weave through, the revolving doors.
Well, how about, I don't know, Toph's legacy?
Okay, that was pretty sick. It's pretty sick. Uh, want to throw in their initial impressions right off the bat?
What initial? For her arriving at the city?
Oh yeah, just Toss Kid. How the whole police force are now these crazy badass metal benders.
Yeah.
Like she just elevated the entire level of earthbending. I mean, it was ridiculous what Toph accomplished. If you think about it,
It's like metal bending still a subcategory, much like sand benders.
or blood bending or something like that. Yeah, like it is crazy
Swamp
though.
benders.
Like, I mean, just think about it though. Like, is this kind of information lost over time? Because I mean, how can there go so many thousands of years where there's no metal benders? All of a sudden, Toph says, "Hey, I can bend metal," teaches it, and now it's present, and it's just been absent for so long.
It could.
Yeah, it feels like there must be some cycles, like the devastating like things that happen where like old ways are lost. Where like they used to be able to be metal benders, but then it was forgotten at some point. Or
I think it's also
go ahead.
also more of the fact that if you pay attention more to the first, with Avatar Yang, they didn't really have that much metal. Like the only tribe that used metal was the Fire Nation. If you really think about it, so they really didn't have much incentive for metal bending.
Right.
But since Toph was put into that situation where she had to use that, she pretty much figured it out.
There was
But
that Master Earthbender who was also trapped. He was just had his head. What can't remember his name right now. He was part of the Lotus group.
Boomy.
What was it?
Boomy.
Boomy, right. Boomy was in there too, and he is very experienced, and he did not come up with metal bending. Granted, he wanted to be trapped.
Yeah.
Because he showed us that since they didn't cover his head, he could easily escape at will. He was just
And if they covered his head, they would have killed him and lost their hostage. So.
right. They're basically screwed. They
Yep.
Boomy does what Boomy pleases. To all the League of Legends players out there.
Yes.
Sorry, I did not come up with that by myself. So.
But if you know now too, like with all these metal benders, I mean, if you think about it, it really has to come down to you must know how to metal bend, which all this civilization and just cities and cars and all this engineering and just there has to be that. I mean, I just can't imagine, a earth bending police force without having that ability to metal or to bend metal.
Right. Right. I mean, it's crazy what they can do. So here's a good opportunity to segue. So they kind of showed the perfection. I mean, it's probably not appropriate to term it that, but I'm going to term it this way: that the perfection of each bending has like a mastery expression of itself. Like water was blood bending, earth was metal bending, fire was lightning. Like if we want to go through that trend, do you think we're going to see an air one? And if so, what would the air one be?
What, would you be airbending someone's lungs or something?
Suffocate them, or
The oxygen
go
flowing
Darth
through their
Vader or
in their
something?
blood?
Like, there's oxygen in the blood.
They probably have some surprises in store for us.
Do you think they're going to reveal that though? Do you think that's going to be something that's going to happen in this series?
I have no idea.
Well, I think it might be. It might just because of the fact that she doesn't know much about. She really, if you think about it, like there's only now just a handful of actual wind or air benders, along with her being able to learn it. So, and I'm just guessing that just because she is the Avatar, that she will eventually unlock some unique thing to do with air that the other airbenders won't even think of doing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last episode of the last Avatar, I mean that windshield where he just kind of flew around with it. I mean, that was pretty sweet. I mean, I don't know if that's as big as leap though as like lightning or something.
Yeah.
Someone actually brought that question up to me earlier. His name's Greg, a friend of mine, and my response was that maybe it would be like tornadoes. I was thinking kind of like Storm from X-Men, maybe like create storm conditions, and all of a sudden they can just start creating like hail and just crazy stuff happening. So like they're indirectly almost affecting other elements. I mean, they could maybe direct lightning and create tornadoes, vortexes. That'd be pretty sick. Just
Well, Aang showed instances of creating vortexes in the first series.
okay.
So it would just be Avatar's state of making it grander, and you'd have the tornado.
Right.
Or like in lieu of blood bending, he could probably like with the air like make some sort of just like vacuum of air just to suck all the air out of somebody, possibly.
Actually, now that you think about it, like their kind of rationale for like say like metal bending, they're like, well, what is earth bending? They're like, well, it's the bending of minerals. Metal's a mineral. So I guess we could ask ourselves, what is air? I mean, there's more than just oxygen in air. There's oxygen, nitrogen, and a host of other elements. Is he just manipulating the oxygen? Is he manipulating all those elements? And
He's manipulating air.
And if so, he could potentially create massive explosions. He could potentially just burn your skin off by just raising or lowering the density of the air or the quantity of air, around you. Breathing in pure air will actually burn your lungs. I mean, there's some ridiculous things he could do if he could
How does breathing in pure air burn your lungs?
Listen, I didn't ask you to like quiz me on this stuff. Was it lack of air? What am I thinking here? Maybe I shouldn't say pure. Yeah, maybe if you take out air, like there is stuff in air. What? I meant to say pure oxygen. Is that what I meant to say? Pure oxygen.
Yeah.
Pure oxygen. There we go. My
Pure
terminology.
oxygen.
Airbending, whatever. Do you guys?
So the air bending or oxygen bending?
Exactly.
That's the real
That is the question. Do you guys not sometimes think of a synonym between air and oxygen? I misspoke. There we go. Oxygen. Pure oxygen. So, right. I mean, we're always breathing in pure air, hopefully. So,
Of course, you gotta keep in mind when we say elements and when the show says elements.
they're talking about 4 elements. We're talking about a periodic table.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're looking way into this, guys.
Possibly. But their elements predate ours. I mean, you go to Greeks and stuff like that. I mean, they're talking about wind, fire, water. I mean, those were the elements. They didn't talk about, helium, hydrogen,
They hadn't figured that
Einsteinium.
out yet.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to talk about fire bending, well, they're just bending pure energy, so
Yeah. I mean,
take that to a whole new level.
right. I mean, it's pretty cool. So, we'll see. We'll see what devastating stuff Korra unleashes. Yeah, so Toph's legacy, that was a really good point to bring up, and I hadn't even thought about that. Like I remember it now, but I didn't think about it initially.
Because that was her daughter or granddaughter? I think it was her daughter.
I want to say daughter.
Who's in charge of the police force.
Yeah.
Yeah, her daughter.
So I wonder who she married, huh? Has to be a tough guy.
Yes, that's true.
Probably the Boulder. I hope not.
Probably not.
I hope not. Or maybe Aang was just like a player, just like bounced around.
I didn't get that impression from this first episode.
No.
But I guess there's more to come, so who knows?
Yeah, it could be. Katara could be secretly pissed and like has found it all out. Gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez. Any other things that you guys could think of or want to bring up before we maybe go towards the end of the episode?
I guess the only other thing that I probably should have mentioned before Toph's legacy was the city. There were cars. It looked much more Industrial Revolution era.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Do you guys
Instead
go ahead?
of, a little somewhat, I don't know, ancient.
Yeah, do you think that's going to be the direction of the show, is that maybe all bending might be lost and we're all non-benders and it's just about science, and then their world kind of becomes our world?
Depends on who wins, I guess.
Well, benders, I think, are going to win.
They're gonna enslave the non-benders.
The anti-benders are pretty much viewed as bad guys. That's how they're depicting them. I mean, they have dark music, they have a creepy guy in a mask. Yeah, okay, I guess we'll talk about the creepy guy in the mask. I mean, is this Sparky Boom Man come back? Or, I mean, what is this guy? Is he just like a normal person who plans to take on benders, or do we think he can bend?
He probably can bend.
I think he can bend too.
That's usually the plot device.
Yeah.
In so many stories I've read and seen where I'm against you, but I'm secretly one of you.
Yeah.
Right. And he might be legitimately against him. I mean, we've had that with, like, Hitler. He's like, you have to be 6 foot tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. And you're like, hey, boss, you kind of have none of those features.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? You just gave a whole speech on what we need to have. And actually, most of your army doesn't have those features. So what are we going to do? You're just going to kill us off eventually? I guess you didn't think that far ahead. But yeah, so he's gonna be interesting. I don't know. Is he as cool a villain though as like the Phoenix Lord, or
Well, even the Fire Lord didn't show up
too much?
really in force until book 3.
Right.
True.
So I think since he made an appearance, masked and all, early on, of course I read somewhere it was only going to be one season, is what they have planned right now.
Okay, I was hoping for 3 books, but okay.
I can't remember, did this one say book 1 air?
I think it said book
Yeah.
1. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, there may be more, but
Right.
even the Fire Lord they mentioned quickly in the first one, but he really didn't show up until book 3, episode 1. We finally saw him in no cutoffs.
That is something I hope they do differently in this one. Like, they always hype up some characters, and like Avatar has some amazing stuff in it. It has some good humor in it, has some good character development, a lot of good messages to the viewer. But sometimes I feel like they hype something up and they short-live it. And like the Fire Lord, he's this badass, he's this powerful, maybe even more powerful than the uncle, and all we see him is get his ass beat. Like, that's what we see him. He's
Well, that fight was over as soon as Aang entered the Avatar state.
yeah,
Nothing
Pretty much.
to that, almost.
right, exactly. I mean, no, I don't care how good a firebender you are. This guy has the experience of whatever 5,000 master firebenders, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the number. I'm just like, I was gonna say infinite, but that wasn't right.
Well, their pictures always looked like it went on to infinity.
Yeah, it is a cycle. So in the little belief system,
Yeah.
someone was telling me that is it possible for 2 avatars to overlap, or one must die for the next one to be born? Is it? Okay.
And one must die for the other one to be born.
That's what I thought too, and someone had just said differently, and I don't know, it wasn't fresh enough. I couldn't like quote Bible chapter 2 verse 1, thus saith the Lord, the first avatar must die before the next one is born. Yeah, you do something bad, Lawrence, or something. We have.
No, I don't know where those sirens were coming from.
Uh-oh, they're coming to get us.
I do live near a busy road where they always drive by with their sirens, even at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, always crying, always drug deals going on.
I guess.
Yeah. Which I'm surprised they haven't introduced drugs. I mean, that's what this almost feels like. It's like, it feels like there's just some.
They need more drugs in the Avatar universe.
They do.
Yeah, this is a children's show. We need more adult content.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like in the beginning, with those the mob firebenders.
Yeah.
That was their whole deal. They weren't getting
right.
paid for their
That
stuff.
was their turf. Yeah. And being spiritual, they all just like sit around and get high, right? That's. You need to get in touch with your spiritual side, Korra. Damn. Korra's like 17. It's ridiculous.
That's cool.
Whereas
She's
Aang
older
is
than
like
Aang.
14 in the whole show.
That's probably why she's a lot
12,
better.
actually.
Yeah, 12. I mean, there you go. Is that from the beginning though, or is that at the end he's 12? So do we see him at like?
At the beginning, he's 12, and I think a year passes.
Wow, he did a lot for a 13-year-old.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so what do we think about the comrades that she's gonna get? Is she gonna get like, I don't know, just a bunch of locals? You think that just have? She doesn't need airbenders. She has a trainer. She doesn't need any of the other benders. Is she just gonna get her own little gang, her own little group, or what? I mean,
Well, I think we got introduced to at least 2 of them in the
second
second
one, I
episode.
feel too. I feel it's going there, and the love interest almost seems to be alluded right there.
Yes.
But let's not spoil it too much in case people watch this review without having seen both episodes. But yeah, more to come in episode 2. Larry Williams, I started watching him last year, and really liked how he did his podcast. He had this like high energy intensity, which I can only hope to capture. But he says "Otako assemble" and kind of fist pumps. So since I call this Jilow Cast, we're gonna try it out. Jilow Cast. Did it work? Did it work? Come on, Larry. Comment. Tell me if that's enough homage. That's my tribute to Larry Williams. Anyway, thanks guys. It was great podcasting with you, And we'll see you probably next week, and we'll do episode 2.
Don't forget, have a great day.